Cherry Life. And here's the topic of my today's presentation. It's about EU Road Safety Policy. And from European countries' viewpoint, and I would share with you guys that what's going on here. And about the introduction, it's actually a big policy called the EU on the Road. And today's working document is actually a slice piece of it. And why I would like to publish this working document is that the performance of their current road safety policy didn't perform that well. Sorry, the graph is actually a little bit small. From about 2001, the number of people died on the road of European Union dropped from about 54,000 to 31,000. And it actually worked pretty well in the past. But since 2010, the performance of the policy was actually not very nice. You can see the blue line was the expectation at that time. But the green line is actually what happened. So they would like to publish this working document to improve their performance. And here's some new approaches they come up with. The first one is actually the mindset of Vision Zero. Vision Zero is actually provided by some officials in Nordic countries in the past, which means they don't want to see any people die on the road of their country. And you can imagine that even European Union. European Union is one of the safest regions on the world. And I mean, the number of people die on their roads equals to an airplane crash happen every single week. So I mean, if you put it that way, you can realize that how serious the problem is. And the second one is that we need to implement some safe system. And their experts come up with 4 core elements about that. And I will touch upon it later, so I'll just skip this slide. And about the modern technology. Modern technology is mainly about autonomous vehicle and autonomous buses. And here's 2 sides of the coin, right? The potential it can bring to us is about because currently about 95% of car accidents happening every single day is caused by human being. So in the future, you don't have to drive a car by yourself. It's driven by robot or computer. So I think the number of people die on the road can drop dramatically. But here's another side, another risk. It's about mixed traffic in the period of transition. And that's the problem we got to deal with also. And another part of the new trending of traffic is the sharing economy. I believe almost all people have already experienced that. And you can imagine that the car or the buses you just rent, you're actually not that familiar with how to drive it. So I mean, you bring us some risk about safety issues. But at the same time, you can dramatically reduce the congestion problem happening right now in the area. And here's the chapter 2. It's about assessment of the EU road safety policy orientation. And you can imagine that European Union is actually a big international organization, and they got really a lot of different countries. But we got to come up with some standards for everyone to follow. Just like imagine this is a country, like per 100,000 people in Germany, they got 6.7 people die. And in Poland, they got 7.7 people die yearly. And how about Taiwan? Anyone want to have a guess?
3,000!
More than 3,000. More than 10. More than 10. More than 10. It's about 13 people. So actually the road safety issue is really serious in Taiwan. And yeah, the graph is just the one I mentioned. So I mean, the experts come up with some technical studies, and which I put this list up because I think these are the most important ones. And this one is called anti-locking braking. I think a lot of younger generation in Taiwan are pretty familiar with the issue. That's why we got to pay a lot more money to buy a scooter. So yeah, it is a one. And another one is pretty unique. It's called cross-border enforcement. This one is actually, you can imagine that some drivers in Belgium and they just got caught by their police and they flee to Germany. And also, sorry, it is France. They flee to France. And I mean, the police in Belgium, they got to contact to the police in France. And I mean, they are now considering how to just speed up the process of their policing process, and it's not working. And another one is called automated emergency call. And just imagine that if your car accidentally hit a tree, and your car can monitor that its owner is blacking out, and it would call the ambulance automatically for you. So yeah, it's pretty sad. And another chapter is safe system approach at EU level, and it's about 3 points. The first one is target and performance tracking. And like you can imagine that the current performance, the performance of current policy. And I mean, several years ago, we got to have a standard to review. It is nice, it is bad. So I mean, the experts recommend the government to have a first set of KPI. And another one is shared responsibility. It's basically because it's needless to mention that road safety issue cannot merely solved by government officials, right? And also some private sectors like banks, like BMW in European countries, they also got to take part in this issue so that they can solve the problem. And this one is EU funding. EU funding is like basically like some richer countries in European Union. They got to support those poorer countries in Eastern Europe. And sorry, I'm not going to name it, but it's basically how it works. Here's the chapter 4. Chapter 4 is some main interventions I'm going to introduce to you. And first one is infrastructure. Infrastructure is like road signs. When you like drive through some road signs, and because here are some equipment equipped on decimal signs, and your car can connect to it, so that when you drive through that, and you would know how fast you are supposed to drive. So in the past, it's actually not that easy to overspeed. And the markings is actually about this system called lane keeping assistance. And I mean, when you like feel sleepy while driving, and your car would monitor it and tell you in the future. So I mean, it wouldn't be that easy to have car accident in the future. And about a safe vehicle, I mean, it's basically like this too. I mean, in the past we tend to use some equipment with passive safety feature, like safety belt and airbags. But right now we have the modern high-tech technology to, I mean, for like some system I just mentioned. This one is about safe road use. I think I don't have to mention how important it is. Just don't use your cell phone while driving. And the next one is fast and effective emergency response. And yeah, this one I also mentioned. I've already mentioned those. And chapter 5. Chapter 5 is actually about the European countries' future efforts on the issue. Right now, the population of European Union account for like 5% of the world population. But when it comes to road fatality, I mean, they only account for like 2% of all. So actually, the European Union is actually the safest region in the world. So they got to help out. They got to cooperate with other regions of the world. And here's a series of projects they've already achieved. But I mean, it's just the beginning. And in the future, they got to cooperate with more regions also. And yeah, I mean, we all know that when it comes to this issue, actually Taiwanese government got to pay more attention on it. So yeah, I hope in the future Taiwan can be one of country listed. And yeah, here's my brief presentation. Thanks.
Thanks, Kevin, to let us know that Taiwan has many things need to improve, like enhance the policy or like the safety of the traffic.